Good morning, church. Hey. All right. So, some of you are realizing it's not going to be a normal day, and you wish you'd made other plans, but here you are, and you can't leave now. I'm excited to be here. Again, my name's Austin Crockett. I guess we've been here, a year and a half now. This is home. I've been telling people this. It's pretty easy. Like when I say, we moved to Jacksonville Beach, and we're involved in serving at a church there. People are like, a tough gig, like move to the beach. But I tell you what, if the beach wasn't here, it wouldn't change our desire to be here. We talk about it all the time. We are passionate about what God is doing at OCC, and we're so ready to move our lives here because we were just like, this is where God wants us, and we feel like God is moving. So I'm glad I get to be here with you. It should be a pretty relaxed Sunday. The Jags aren't playing today, so you can just take a deep breath and realize that that's not something you have to go worry about when you leave here. You'll just have to worry about it after a long Monday, for those of you who care. Dave and Derek are at a Parents' Weekend at FSU, and I even wrote here, Dave and Derek Parents' Weekend, insert congratulations if they get the win. So, congrats, guys. Those of you who are Florida State fans. Looking up. We're in a series called Creed, and this is not a one-off. I just really think today I'm going to continue kind of down a path Derek led us down. He had already kind of started to lead us here, and so I want to continue from that place. And the first statement Derek started us with out of the Nicene Creed, and there's power in this series. I've really enjoyed it because there's power in us saying out loud and understanding what we believe. We live in a world with half-truths and very ambiguous things where it's nice to take some time and say, look, this is what we believe. This matters to us. And if you're part of business, if you're part of, a lot of times you have a mission statement, some kind of foundational statement that you try to filter everything you understand about the business you're involved with or the ministry you're involved with or whatever organization you're like, let's filter it through this. So if you're an anchor here, we have anchor values, and we say these are like the way we filter what we do. Like, we know that these things, we value them, and everything we do here will probably be applied through those values. So something like it matters, we try to always think about that. It matters, the little things matter. Like, that's an anchor value. So we try to make sure that the place is cleaned up. Like, we look around, like, and it spreads to our anchors. Like, I hear stories about, like, oh, so-and-so was just out there picking up trash, and they weren't on to do that. They were just doing it because it matters, and they wanted to welcome people into the house today. So to be in this series, the first statement we said last week that Derek led us through is, I believe in one God, the Father Almighty, maker of heaven and earth, of all things visible and invisible. That's our statement. One God. This is what I believe. One God, the Father Almighty, maker of heaven and earth. Maker, that's pretty much covers it. Because the heavens and the earth and everything in between, of all things visible and invisible. One God. And Derek led us to a few things. One, he tried to get us to understand the magnitude of God's greatness. Remember, he showed a picture. If you were here last week, he showed a picture, the pale blue dot, which is just a really awesome thing to see because you feel very, very small when you see a mote of dust suspended in a sunbeam, and you realize that all of us have lived out our lives, all of us. Everything of the human experience has taken place on this mote of dust, and you realize, wow, I'm really, really small and God's really, really big. but that should actually bring us comfort in knowing, and that's some of the stuff we're going to continue into today, that thank goodness it's not all in your hands. Thank goodness you're not in charge of all of it. Because I can barely get out of bed and get the one day to go just the way I thought it should. You know what I'm saying? See, I didn't expect this to happen. If I had any control, there wouldn't be one of these going off in every single person's phone at this moment. That's funny, you know? If I had any control at all, I got to get them to do that at the second one. I don't know how I'm going to pull that off, but that worked really well for what I'm trying to explain. Thank goodness I'm not in charge of that. And he talked about another thing. He talked about a relative ruler, the things to which we measure our lives by to decide how are we doing, our value. And it really started to get me thinking about myself. Who am I? How am I defined? What's my name, so to speak? And that's where we're going to be. We started in Scripture there where Jesus changes Peter's name. Why did he do that? What's my name? There's power in a name. My name is Austin Edward Crockett. Middle name, Edward. So, at one point, my parents, Pamela and Edward, or Ed, Pam and Ed Crockett, they held me in their arms, and they looked down into my little face. I guess it was little. Pretty stocky guy. Might have been like, but they looked down into my face and they gave me a name. And they loved me right then and there from that moment, even before, as they knew I was coming. You know, for months, I'm sure they thought about that name. They decided upon it. There was a lot put into that. I mean, they were like, Austin, I remember them saying like, well, we thought Austin might sound like a doctor's name. I was like, nope. And then they gave me Edward as a middle name. Well, I mean, you don't hear a lot of Edward anymore, but I love that because it was my dad's name, right? So there's meaning in that. They decided my dad said, look, maybe we're not giving me the exact same name, but I got to name him after me. It's my boy, you know? I'm going to name him after me. He's going to carry my name. What if I was really bad at carrying his name? Do you think they were taking that into account? It's like, well, maybe we'll name him later, because if I name him later and see if he's worthy of the name I give him. No, didn't need to do that. Looked at him with all the love that a father could have and said, Austin Edward. Doesn't matter. He's going to carry my name because I love him. He's my son. I'm proud to carry that name. I looked up some name meanings. That was fun. Austin, and let me just go ahead and preface this. I'm not a doctor. I don't know everything. Like, there are some great scholars out there. I'm speaking from the human experience, what I know to be true in God, but like, can I guarantee you that this is what these names mean? I got them off the internet, you know. But from what I read, Austin was derived from Latin name Augustine, meaning great, magnificent, or majestic. Yeah, I'm sure they thought about that when they named it that. Middle name Edward, meaning wealthy guard. I don't know exactly. For some of you, that means vampire who sparkles in the sunlight. Majestic vampire who sparkles in the sunlight, Crockett. I looked up some other names. David. Some of you might know what that means in Hebrew. Beloved. Beloved. I'm sure he'd love to hear that. And then Gerald. I looked your name up. Germanic, meaning rule or ruler of the spear. Yeah. So look out for Gerald. So his name, means he's pretty serious business over there. Derek, I thought y'all might like this. Christian masculine name of Greek origin meaning people ruler. So, good thing we got the elders keep that guy in line, Some people have been given ridiculous names, and I mean, this is just a rabbit hole. I was like, what do these names mean? What are names that people have? Can we show this first one? Yeah, this guy's name's actually Donald Duck, and he got arrested. I looked it up, and I'm like, wonder what he got arrested for. I'm like, he's probably just frustrated with his plight in life. Just Donald Duck. He probably heard that joke one too many times, People talking like, I don't have a good Donald Duck impression, but I bet he's heard a bunch of them, Here's another one. This kid's name's Jed I. Knight. You know they knew what they were doing. I feel like he's got big things in his future, likely destined to bring balance to the force. The next one is this guy. This can't be real. That guy, judging by his hair, he knew he was making a joke for his yearbook. And that one was funny. This is the don't show it yet. This one's my favorite, this next one, because I looked up a little bit more about this guy. This is his name. This is his occupation. There's never been a greater person who's lived up to their name in all of history. Lived up to their name, because I'm like, I want to live up to my father's name. This guy lived up to his name in every possible way. Show. His name, he's a fire lieutenant named Les McBurney. So good. Legends. He said, I know exactly what I'm going to be, Dad. I'm going to be a fireman. You made me for this. Which I would love it if you guys start calling Dave that. He's a fireman. Don't tell him why. Just do it. Say, what's up, Les McBurney, how's it going? He's going to be like, what are you talking about? It's fine. And that way we'll know if he actually goes back and watches the messages. So, it's good. I digress. From what we see in our scripture reading this morning, they stopped calling Simon, Simon. It became Peter. Jesus looked at him, said, blessed are you. This was revealed to you through my Father in heaven. No longer are you Simon, you're Peter. Which we read and we're like, that's awesome. I think in that moment, probably pretty strange moment. Just because I mean, what would you do if I was over at your house, you cooked me dinner and it was really, really good, and I was like, your name is no longer Gerald, it's Gordon. It's just, that's the way we're going to do it. That's what happened. They changed his name. Jesus changes his name. And it got me to start thinking how much it means to me. I'm really trying to drive that home. Like the names we answer to. Not just the ones that are, our legal name, but like there are these names that we answer to. Sometimes we answer to the wrong name. I mean, I do that even with my real name. There was, at a church I served at for years and years, there was a guy there named Lloyd. And Lloyd, for some reason, for 8 years, just called me Justin. Every single time. Justin. I mean, people, I think, corrected him, and then I think he thought that, I was calling him Austin, but his name's Justin, and he would, it was like, recorrect. And I mean, he just said it for 8 years, and I'm like, and I just answered to it. I'm like, hey, Lloyd, you don't correct the person after 8 years. You just let them do it. And then Dave, he calls me A-Rob. Some of you might have been at at our, what was it? We were here for either city group kickoff, and he explained it. First time I'd heard why as well. He just was like, for a year, he's just been like, what's up, A-Rob? Hey, A-Rob. I'm like, I don't have a Rob anywhere in my name. I've just been answering to that. I'm like, I don't know. I'm new here. I don't know. Maybe it's a thing we do here. But, he told the story. He had a friend that, There are names that when I start looking at, when you hear your name called, you turn and look, is my point. If you were all facing the other way and I called your name, you would know and you would look because you know your name. And I think that we may know our legal name, but some of us are living our lives living with secondary names, labels, identities in our life that are false, that are not real, but they inform the way we live, they inform the way we do everything. I'll give you an example. If you know anything about my story, I've dealt with some loss. So I was a very happy child, but I lost my dad at a younger age and my mom still at a pretty young age, lost both of them. But I had great parents. But inevitably, when you go through certain things, they start to change the way you think or they affect you. And so it would be crazy to think that some kind of loss like that doesn't have some kind of effect on what I think, what I fear, what I understand about life. It mostly has positively affected me in ways of understanding the value of Jesus in loss. But it changes the way you think. And some of the things that I took on over time, one of the names I believed about myself was alone. You are alone. You are an orphan, and you are alone. It was like, even when I say it, there's like a ominous voice attached to it. This is who you are. And everything you do, and everything you think, and every decision you make needs to be filtered through this thing that you are alone. So make your decisions knowing you're alone. So with you being alone, how do you want to function? I struggled with other things, even more secondary. That was probably the biggest one. Less than, not good enough, unattractive, things that some of you connect with. The biggest one being, that's why you're alone. Less than, not good enough, unattractive, alone, you're alone. Your parents aren't here. Anybody you're going to draw close to, they're not going to be here for long. This fear, this name that really started to affect who I was. One time, it totally broke me. I was at the YMCA playing racquetball. I loved playing racquetball, and this was after, like I said, sometime after I'd lost my mother. We're playing racquetball with like 2 other friends. And I come back out, and we get done in between a game, and we're just chatting, and my friend goes, "Hey, we have a very, very close friend who's Bahamian. He lives in the Bahamas, who we would go see periodically." And my buddy says, "Hey, you going to the Bahamas this summer?" And I was like, "Oh, I don't know. I hadn't heard about it yet. Like, who all's going?" And he said, "Everybody." And I don't know, it destroyed me. Because all of a sudden, I realized everybody's going. Everyone who's anybody's going to the Bahamas. You don't even know about it, dude. You don't even know about it. And I mean, I had like, the only time in my life where I think I got so overwhelmed that I couldn't hide it in public. I usually can hide it in public. When I couldn't hide it. I broke down in the YMCA, just hanging out by the weights in this corner, just really embarrassing sob cries in a corner by like the squat rack, which is the worst place to cry, because there's only like 2 squat racks in that whole YMCA, and everybody's doing leg day that day. They're like, "Hey man, you mind giving me a spot?" It just broke me. Because what I did was I heard the voice that I've been maybe trying not to hear. I heard it call my name. And I turned and looked right at it. You're alone. See? It's a name I carry. Some of you have the same thing going on. Like, if we're going to be real about it, today you're walking in and maybe you're like, I can carry it okay. Maybe you were doing just like what I'm doing. But many of you are standing in here or sitting in here right now, and if you really thought about it, you could pinpoint them. Maybe you just haven't heard them named verbally. But some of you are sitting here and going, "Yeah, I'm an outcast. I don't fit in with these people, with any people, honestly. Outcast, outcast, outcast." You know what happens when you start thinking that way? you start creating that as truth. So I was alone. But then I lived like 15 minutes from everybody else in Valdosta at that time. And I was living in my family home by myself. And people would say, hey, we're hanging out tonight. And I'm like, I don't want to go up there tonight. I'm tired, and I'm not going to go hang. And I said no to that enough. Well, then the first time I saw them all hanging out and I didn't get the invite, I'm like, I knew it. They don't want me. You start to make these things true. And I bring it up. I'm like, hey, y'all didn't invite me. He's like, I've invited you 8 straight times. I just didn't think you wanted to come. Maybe they, and that, on the other side, keep on people, man. Keep on them. Them saying no to your city group, to your hangout session, to, hey, we're getting the guys together. Them saying no, don't put a limit on it. Because it ain't you. It's so often them. I don't know if I'll fit. I don't know how I'll do. I don't know. I don't want to put myself out there. What if they don't like me? Some of you are carrying outcast. Some of you are carrying mistake. I shouldn't be here. I don't belong. Unintelligent. Maybe some of you had a teacher that told you that when you were a kid, and you've carried it your whole life. I'm not smart enough to do anything that matters. Unimportant. Broken. Damaged. I mean, a lot of us have that one. I'm broken. I mess it up. Lost cause. Names. Maybe your name is this, but underneath it, there's this, and this. And they inform, they are core values to how you see yourself. So, I've had enough of that. I know that's kind of downer. We start to attach these names to our lives. We turn our head and answer them every time they call. But there is something, the question before us today is this. Are they true? Because if we're going to hear them, we have to do a little math problem. We have to say, okay, are they true? And how do we decide if they're true? How do I know if I'm really alone? How do I know if I'm really broken and damaged? I've been saying it to myself long enough. And is there a chance that all the personal anguish, internal turmoil we wrestle with is untrue? So, how do we rid ourselves of it? How do we be free of it? Let's take a look. First thing I want you, if you're taking any note today, it would be important for you to know that you do not achieve a name, you receive it. You do not, so take a note or keep that in your mind. You do not achieve a name, you receive it. I started us off there, right? I did not achieve that name. I received it. I had done that. Gerald, what did your little baby girl do that made you love her so much? Tell us. Not a thing. Not a thing. But boy can't even talk about her. He's standing up here, trying not to cry, talking about her. And she hasn't even done that much yet, dude. And what's the big deal? No, it's a big deal. And she didn't achieve that name. She received it. You can't name yourself because you're not worthy to do so. I can prove that. Like, have you ever tried to talk yourself up in a mirror? You're not doing that because you believe it's true about yourself. You're doing it because you think you're not good enough. You're like, I can get this job. You're like looking at yourself like, I can do it. I can do it. But it really helps when someone looks at you and says, you're perfect for this, you know? When girls, you know, men, have you ever been in like a moment where your wife is, y'all are getting ready to go out and your wife's walked past you a few times, but you're preoccupied, and finally she's like, are you going to say anything about what I'm wearing? She's not doing that for nothing. She wants to hear you tell her, baby, you are beautiful. There's a reason why I'm here with you. I love everything about you. You look gorgeous today. She wants to hear that because just a minute ago she was in the mirror like, I don't know, I don't know. We can't name ourselves as much as we want to find our own identity within ourselves. It comes from somewhere else. We're looking for it all the time, approval in other places. And I'm glad because I'm very untrustworthy. I'm a very bad source for my own identity. Very bad source. Look, I was listening to Tim Keller talk about this. He nailed this concept. He was like, and I've said this before. It was when I look at my 15-year-old self, my 20-year-old self thinks my 15-year-old self is a total idiot. Right? And my 25-year-old self thinks my 20-year-old self is a total idiot. And so on and so forth. Like I keep looking back, I'm like, golly, can you believe I thought and functioned that way? And we're trying to say that we're supposed to filter everything that we believe about ourselves through ourselves, but our own identity, and our culture has perpetuated this so much now that it is something we struggle with. It's called expressive individualism. In previous cultures, there was very much about maybe the family unit or the group, and it was like, hey, self-sacrifice for the group, for the betterment of the group, for the betterment of the family. But now it's like, you be your own arrow, man. Who do you think you are? Who do you want to be? What do you believe? If you're around people that don't believe what you believe, go find people that'll agree with you and they'll make you happy. Like that is expressive individualism. Yuval Levin wrote, expressive individualism suggests not only a desire to pursue one's own path, but also a yearning for fulfillment through the definition and articulation of one's own identity. It is a drive both to be more like whatever you already are and also to live in society, by fully asserting who you are. The capacity of individuals to define the terms of their own existence by defining their personal identities is increasingly equated with liberty and with the meaning of some of our basic rights, and it is given pride and place in our self-understanding. A yearning for fulfillment through the definition and articulation of one's own identity. And there's so much identity crisis going on because we don't know what we want. I don't know what I want. And Derek has talked about this. This is an extension of last week. Like, these relative rulers, like, it doesn't work for us. And it creates real crisis in our life. It creates extreme pressure for us to understand and to figure it all out. And how many of you have sent your kid off to college and they've changed their major 3 times? There's so much pressure to figure it out, and I don't know. And if I make the wrong decision, I'm going to ruin my life. That's the feeling. Like it's like this rubber band building tension. I'm going to ruin my life if I make one mistake, because our identity can be all bundled up within ourselves. We need an outside source to tell you who you are. We need it. In some way, we need it. We can't achieve our identity. We can't achieve our name. It's received. Like our careers. It can be a good career, but if it's your identity, it becomes crushing. It becomes crushing because everything hinges on it going well. And bad days are really bad days. Good days are just okay because there's another day coming tomorrow and you're stressing about it. Everything. If your identity's wrapped up in, I've gotten married and it's my spouse, what happens on the day that person is no longer there? Crushed. Everything falls apart. We can't have our identity wrapped up in what we've achieved. Your name is not achieved, it's received. That's my first thought. So it has to be given. So, if we know that, who has the right and is worthy to bestow a name upon you? Who's worthy of something that would shape your identity? Tim Keller, again on this, says, well, you'll need the love and you need the approval and you need the esteem of someone you esteem if you're going to have any self-esteem. You need the love, you need the approval, and you need the esteem of someone you esteem if you're going to have any self-esteem. And then he says, it must be someone who can never let you down. They can't be fickle with you or apply value to you based on your performance, your achievements, because then you're just in the same place. Loves you at your best, but not at your failures. It can't be a person like that. It needs to be someone you esteem enormously. There's a J.R. Tolkien quote. He says, the praise of the praiseworthy is above all rewards. The praise of the praiseworthy is above all rewards. Tolkien, but also Faramir said that. You know. Whoever you want to credit. The praise of the praiseworthy is above all reward. Who fits this criteria? Who's truly worthy to provide the foundation of who you are? Feels like I'm going somewhere. Do you know someone who you esteem so highly that you know they would never be able to let you down? Do you know someone who never judges you by your achievements, but loves you unconditionally? And someone that is truly great, that you esteem them so highly. I have people in my life that I think that way about. But what would happen if something happened to them? Can't build my life there. Colossians 1:15 through 17, the Son is the image of the invisible God, the firstborn over all creation. For in him all things were created, okay? The Creator. We've already been touching on this. Derek's been touching on this. Things in heaven and on earth, visible and invisible, whether thrones or powers or rulers or authorities, all things have been created through him and for him. You're worthy of it all. For from him are all things, and to him are all things. He deserves the glory. Praiseworthy. In him all things hold together. Here's another one. Psalm 8:3-4. We've looked at this one before. When I consider your heavens, the work of your fingers, the moon and the stars which you have set in place, what is mankind that you are mindful of them, and human beings that you care for them? So we're starting to get to a thing of like, maybe this God is actually praiseworthy. Maybe he's really, really good. Maybe he really is the one who sets the moon and the stars and everything into place. Maybe he is the one who literally fleshed out the wonder of light, who spoke it and it became. Light didn't exist and now it exists. And by it, everything is seen and understood through light. And he just thought it up, this star-breathing, magnificent God. Maybe he is that way. So if he is, what is mankind that God is mindful of me? What does he think about me? Because I still feel alone. I still feel damaged. This is something he says about you. He says he created your inmost being. David's writing this. Lord, you knit me together in my mother's womb. I praise you because I'm fearfully and wonderfully made. And also, your works are wonderful. I know that full well. Like he's like reminding himself in that last line, like you made me. I'm a work of art from you, and your works are wonderful. He's saying you're wonderful. He says he knit you together in your mother's womb. I don't know how to knit. But it's a tedious thing. It takes care. You know? Seems like an act of love. I don't know a whole lot of people knitting just because they're frustrated and hate it. Maybe some of you are like, I had to knit all the time. It's like my my cross to bear. I've been forced, knitting has been forced upon me. But I would venture to say most of you who do knit probably enjoy the care and the time it takes. It says, you're fearfully and wonderfully made. Fearfully, what does that mean? With great care and respect. With great care and respect you were made. Wonderfully speaks for itself, because it says, your works are wonderful. I know that full well. The things that you do are wonderful. They're glorious. That you took the same care in knitting me together that you did when you breathed the universe into existence. That's beautiful. What is mankind that you are mindful? But all this, you're like, Austin, that's pretty abstract. Because I'm still like, I go home and I struggle with not feeling good enough. I don't feel like I'm good enough. This 1 John 4, 9 through 10, this is how we start to bring it to a place where it's for you. For you. How do you know he changed your name? 1 John 4, 9 and 10. This is how God showed his love among us. He sent his one and only Son into the world that we might live through him. This is love. Not that we love God, but that he loved us. Not that we achieved his love, but we receive it. He sent his Son as an atoning sacrifice for our sins. In this, he has forever secured an immeasurable value to your life. Because I'm not buying something unless it's worth buying. And what kind of value does he say about you? He says, you are worth everything to me. Everything. So much so that I will die for it. Because he's great. And he says, you have value. But he backs it up with the greatest sacrifice we've ever seen. He became sin who knew no sin. The perfect Lamb of God. So that we, in turn, might become his righteousness. You are the righteousness of God in Jesus. And you didn't earn it. You did nothing to gain it. And it wasn't that he decided maybe it's worth doing because of something you did one day. And when he thought about you, he thought about the cross before you'd done a thing. And he secures value to your life that can't be untethered. You know, I have a dog that we got from the shelter. Can we show a picture of him? This is Bo. That's my wife, Lauren, Bo. Bo is, when I went into the shelter, because, I was at a time where I was feeling very alone. Now, I walked into the shelter, and have you ever been to a dog shelter or an animal shelter? It's like overload, nightmare fuel. Like, it's just barking and barking, and it smells bad, and it's chaos in there, and I'm walking through, I'm like, not that one, not that one, not that one. I got to the very end, and there's just this dog just sitting, and he was so sweet looking, He wasn't a little puppy, but I was like, I don't need a puppy. He seems kind of like me right now, And I was like, well, can I take him out in the yard? Took him out in the yard. Ran around with him. Everywhere I'd run with him, he would run. I'd stop, he'd stop. Just sit by my feet. And as I came, I was like, I'm getting this dog. And I looked at the place where they were putting him back in his kennel, and Like, yeah, I want this one. They were like, oh, you want buckwheat? I said, buckwheat? And I look at there's a little card, and they named him Buckwheat, I guess. And I looked at him and I said, you're not going to be Buckwheat no more. Not anymore. Changed his name. That's Bo now. Bo's a good dog. He's so sweet. He comes to his name when I call it. He wouldn't know what a buckwheat was. Why did I have the right to change his name? Because I bought him. For him, they said it only cost $100. That's a pretty easy decision for me. But that was the price for his life. And I bought him. I brought him home. I cleaned him up. I changed his name. He doesn't answer to buckwheat anymore. That's Bo. He knows his name. We need to start understanding that you were bought with a price. And in that price, it has to secure a value to you, whether you want to believe that or not. He proves it by what he's done. You don't have to believe you're worth his life for him to have said, you're worth it. So the challenge before you today is really just, what's it going to take for you to understand and believe that the praiseworthy one calls you child, calls you beloved? And the best way to do that is to worship the worthy one. If the praise of the praiseworthy is above all rewards, our response is worship. That's how we start to hear the voice of God. That's how we start to understand the voice of God, is we meet with him. We draw near to him. Draw near to me and I will draw near to you. That's how we will start to hear his name when he calls it. Hear your name when he calls it out. I am a storyteller, and I can't help but say the shortest one. And this is how I'll close. I remember finding some old videotapes. And I put this old videotape, the home video, I'm by myself, put a whole old home videotape, and I see myself, little like 4-year-old big-headed Austin. Smaller than that, too, at least. I'm very young. And I'm like waddling around, trying to figure out, and I'm looking at the camera. And I'm going back and forth. I'm trying to figure out what I'm doing. And there's someone behind the camera saying, hey, Austin, hey, Austin, hey, Austin. Hey, you got your toy? You want to pick up your toy? And I'm watching it, and I'm just like, wow, that's me, man. That's me as a little kid. And I'm learning things. I'm like, who the heck is saying that? I'm trying to figure out who's the person behind the camera today. And I'm watching, and all of a sudden, like a brick, it hit me. It was like, that was my dad's voice. That was my dad. I just haven't heard it in so long. I had not heard it in so long. It was hard to pick it out in the crowd. If you want to have your name changed, anyone who is in Christ is a new creation. The old is gone. The new is come. We have to accept it. We have to receive it. And it will change your life if you will just draw near and worship the worthy one. If you go for that with everything you have, it will change who you are. If in this moment in worship, if you go for it and you seek him with all you have, and then tomorrow you go for it. Like, I know the one thing that is that the God of all glory, he calls me son, so I'm going to seek that. And he will draw near. He will draw near. Let's stand together. Lord, where would I be without you? I pray that you would loose chains from us today. That you would help us right now to bind the enemy who is whispering untruths over us. Whispering words like alone, damaged, broken. Would you just loose those chains? And would you let us hear names like accepted, loved, new? Because you didn't come to fix me up. You came to make me new. We were dead, but now we're alive. We are not the same. Don't let us live that way. Come, Jesus.